The Great Battle of Hansando, July 8, 1592. Early in the morning, we headed toward Gyeonaryang, where the enemy ships were stationed. When we reached the open sea, we saw one large enemy ship and one medium-sized ship come forward as scouts. Upon spotting our fleet, they retreated to where their main forces were stationed. We pursued them and found 73 enemy ships in total, 36 large ships, 24 medium-sized ships, and 13 small ships, all lined up and anchored. However, the terrain of Gyeonaryang is very narrow and full of rocks, making it unfavorable for our Panoxion ships to maneuver and fight. If the enemy sensed they were at a disadvantage, they could easily escape to the shore. To counter this, we devised a plan to lure them into the open waters near Hansando, where they could not escape by swimming away. Even if they landed on shore, they would eventually starve to death. To execute the plan, we sent 5 or 6 Panoxion ships to feign an attack on the enemy's vanguard, creating the impression of an ambush. The enemy ships quickly raised their sails and chased after us. Our ships pretended to retreat, drawing them into the open sea, where our trap was set. Hungyang Magistrate Bei Hong Rip completely destroyed one large Japanese warship in the middle of the sea, killing 8 enemies and causing many others to drown. Bangdap Commander Yi Sun Sin, not Admiral Yi, destroyed one large Japanese warship and killed 4 enemies, but focused more on shooting arrows than beheading enemies. He also chased and defeated 2 more enemy ships, burning them on the spot. Left Assault Captain Yi Ginam destroyed one large Japanese warship, killing 7 enemies. Left Special Captain John Man Ho, along with officers Yun Sagong and Ga An Chuk, destroyed 2 Japanese multi-decked warships in the middle of the sea and killed 6 enemies. Nakan Magistrate Shinho destroyed one large Japanese warship, killing 7 enemies. Nakdo Commander Jong-un fired cannons to break through 2 Japanese multi-decked warships. The Allied ships then attacked together, burning the enemy ships, killing 3 enemies, and rescuing 2 captive Koreans. Yodo officer Kim In-young destroyed one large Japanese warship and killed 3 enemies. Balpo Commander Hwang Jong-rak crushed one Japanese multi-decked warship, and Allied ships helped burn it. They killed 2 enemies in the process. Captain Song Young-min of the Right Special Unit killed 2 enemies. Choi Chonbo, the former magistrate of Hongyang, killed 3 enemies. Yeonghwa, a former officer of the Advance Unit, killed 1 enemy. Park Yiryang, captain of the Right Assault Unit, also killed 1 enemy. On the ship I was aboard, we killed 5 enemies. Son Yun-mun, the leader of a reserve unit, fired guns at 2 small Japanese ships and chased the enemy up the mountain. Choi Do-jeon, an officer of the 5th Command, rescued 3 young Korean boys. The remaining enemy fleet of 20 large ships, 17 medium-sized ships, and 5 small ships was destroyed and burned by the combined efforts of commanders from both the left and right divisions. Many enemy soldiers were hit by arrows and drowned in the water, their numbers too great to count. About 400 Japanese soldiers, seeing that the situation was hopeless, abandoned their ships and fled to the shore of Hansando. Meanwhile, 14 remaining enemy ships, 1 large, 7 medium, and 6 small, that had been slower to engage, saw the destruction and killings from a distance. They quickly rowed away and escaped. After fighting all day, the commanders and soldiers were exhausted, and as night fell, it became too dark to continue the pursuit. We set up camp inside the waters of Gyeonaryang and rested for the night. Admiral Yi Sun Sin demonstrated exceptional tactical brilliance during the Great Battle of Hansando. Recognizing that the narrow, rocky waters of Gyeonaryang were unsuitable for direct combat, he devised a plan to lure the Japanese fleet into the open waters near Hansando, where escape would be impossible. Using a feigned retreat, he sent a small group of Penoxion ships to provoke the enemy vanguard, drawing them into a preset trap. Once the enemy fleet was in the open sea, Yi Sun-sin's forces executed the crane wing formation, Hagikjin, encircling the Japanese ships and unleashing overwhelming firepower. This caused chaos among the enemy, enabling the Joseon Navy to dominate the battle. The victory was decisive, with 73 Japanese ships, including large multi-decked warships, medium-sized vessels, and small boats, destroyed or burned. Hundreds of Japanese soldiers were killed, many by arrows and cannon fire, while others drowned. Korean prisoners, including young boys, were rescued from enemy captivity. Key commanders such as Bae Hong-rip, Yi Gi-nam, and Jong-un played significant roles, destroying enemy ships, killing Japanese soldiers, and contributing to the rescue of captives. Their combined efforts delivered decisive blows to the Japanese forces. The battle demoralized the Japanese fleet, forcing 14 remaining ships to retreat. Approximately 400 Japanese soldiers abandoned their ships and fled to shore, effectively neutralizing them as a threat. This victory solidified Admiral Yi Sun-sin's reputation as a brilliant strategist and dealt a critical blow to Japanese plans by securing the southern seas of Korea and disrupting their supply lines. It marked a turning point in the Imjin War, showcasing the strength, resilience, and adaptability of the Joseon Navy under Yi's leadership. The battle at Angolpo, July 9, 1592. We were heading toward Gadeok when scouts reported that about 40 Japanese ships were anchored at Angolpo. I immediately discussed plans with the local Navy commanders, including the Right Naval Commander of our province and the Gyeongsang Right Naval Commander, to destroy the enemy forces. However, by the time we finished planning, night had already fallen, and a strong headwind made it impossible to sail forward. Therefore, we spent the night at Hansando, modern-day Chilcheondo Hachungmyeon Gyeoji. July 10th. The Right Naval Commander of our province had departed at dawn, setting up camp near the coast of Gadeok. He had promised to quickly join us with reinforcements if we engaged the enemy, leaving behind a hidden reserve force. I led our fleet, forming the crane wing formation, and launched an attack while instructing the Gyeongsang Right Naval Commander to follow behind. When we arrived at Angolpo and looked toward the harbor, we saw 42 enemy ships anchored there, 21 large warships, 15 medium-sized ships, and 6 small boats. Among them, one large ship with 3 levels and 2 large ships with 2 levels floated near the harbor entrance, while the rest were tightly lined up, like fish scales, deeper within the harbor. The terrain of the harbor was narrow and shallow. As the tide receded, the seabed became exposed, making it difficult for our Panoxone warships to navigate. We tried multiple times to lure the enemy ships out, but they refused to engage, fearing us after our destruction of 59 of their ships during the Hansando battle. The enemy, anticipating an unfavorable outcome, had secured their ships in a rugged area, prepared to escape to land if necessary. Seeing no other option, I ordered my commanders to take turns attacking, firing volleys of cannons, including Cheonja, Jija, and Hyeonja guns, as well as arrows and other projectiles like rain. Eventually, the Right Naval Commander joined us with his hidden forces, and together we launched a coordinated attack. The 3-level and 2-level warships suffered heavy losses, with most of their crew killed or wounded. However, the enemy began loading their dead and injured onto small boats and transferring them to their remaining ships, consolidating their forces onto larger warships. By the end of the day, we had destroyed nearly all of their ships, forcing the surviving enemies to retreat to land. We were unable to capture all the enemies who fled on shore. Burning all the remaining enemy ships to corner them entirely would have endangered local civilians hiding in the nearby mountains. So we decided to withdraw temporarily, moving about 1 RI, approximately 400 meters, away to spend the night. July 11th. At dawn, we returned to surround the remaining Japanese ships, but the enemy had already hastily cut their anchor lines and escaped under the cover of night. We inspected the area where the battle had taken place the previous day. It appeared the Japanese had gathered their dead into 12 piles and burned them, as charred bones were scattered around, along with severed limbs. The harbor and surrounding areas were stained red with blood, evidence of countless dead and wounded among the enemy. By 10 a.m., we searched Yangsan River, Gimhae Harbor, and Gamdong Harbor, but there was no sign of the Japanese forces. To ensure our presence was felt, we stationed our ships in a line from the outer waters of Gadeok to the Molunde coast near Dongne, projecting an intimidating display of our military strength. I sent reconnaissance teams to various locations, including Gadeok's Ungbong and the beacon tower at Gimdang Cape in Gimhae, to gather intelligence on the enemy's numbers and movements. Around 8 p.m., He Suguang, a soldier from the Gyeongsang Right Naval Command who had been sent to Gimdang Cape, returned with his report. The Battle of Angolpo was a decisive engagement that demonstrated Admiral Yi Sun-sin's tactical brilliance and the strength of the Korean Navy. Most of the Japanese fleet at Angolpo, including large 3-level and 2-level warships, was destroyed or heavily damaged. The remaining Japanese forces were forced to retreat to land, abandoning their naval advantage. The aftermath revealed massive enemy casualties, with burnt remains and bloodstains scattered throughout the harbor. Admiral Yi strategically avoided completely burning all enemy ships to prevent retaliation against local civilians hiding in nearby mountains. His decision to temporarily pull back ensured the safety of non-combatants while maintaining naval dominance. The overwhelming strength and tactical superiority displayed by the Korean Navy further demoralized the enemy and disrupted their operations in the region. Admiral Yi employed the crane wing formation to encircle the enemy fleet and maximize firepower in the narrow harbor, achieving devastating results. Although the Japanese ships were securely anchored, Yi's relentless attacks forced them to consolidate their forces, making them more vulnerable. He coordinated a multi-phase assault with support from the Right Naval Commander, combining direct attacks with strategic cannon volleys and reinforcements. He also made a deliberate effort to avoid civilian harm, demonstrating both military acumen and compassion. Following the battle, Admiral Yi stationed his fleet in a highly visible formation from Gadeok to Molunde, showcasing the Navy's strength and discouraging further enemy incursions. Reconnaissance teams were dispatched to gather intelligence on remaining enemy forces, ensuring proactive planning for future engagements. The battle dealt a severe blow to the Japanese Navy, further weakening their supply lines and morale. Admiral Yi's strategic combination of aggressive tactics, calculated withdrawals, and consideration for civilian safety reinforced his reputation as a brilliant and compassionate leader. The Korean Navy's dominance in the southern waters was solidified, significantly contributing to broader efforts to repel the Japanese invasion. The Battle of Sacheon, May 29, 1592. The Joseon Navy's commander Yi Aoki didn't arrive, so I led several commanders and set out at dawn. We went straight to Noryang and met with Gyeongsang Navy Commander Wonjun as planned. When I asked where the enemy was, he said, "They are at Sacheon Port." We immediately went there and saw that the enemy had already set up camp on a mountain, with their ships lined up below the mountain. Their defenses were already well prepared. I encouraged my commanders and launched a full attack. We rained arrows down like a storm and fired cannons and guns like thunder. The enemies, frightened, retreated. Countless were hit by arrows, and we killed many of them. However, we also suffered losses. Officer Na Dae-yong was hit by a bullet, and I was also shot in the left shoulder, with the bullet going through to my back. Thankfully, it wasn't a serious wound. Many archers and rowers were also hit by bullets. Even so, we managed to burn 13 enemy ships. Afterward, we moved to another location to reorganize and prepare. Battle situation and outcome in Yi Sun-sin's diary. The Battle of Sacheon on May 29th unfolded under challenging circumstances. Commander Yi Sun-sin, leading the Joseon Navy, was forced to act without reinforcements from Commander Yi Aoki. Despite this, Yi led several commanders and initiated an offensive after consulting with Commander Won Jun at Noryang. The enemy forces had already fortified their position on a mountain, with their ships stationed below in a defensive formation. The situation required swift and decisive action. Yi Sun-sin motivated his troops and launched an intense attack, raining arrows and firing cannons relentlessly. The Joseon Navy's firepower overwhelmed the enemy, forcing them to retreat. Many enemy soldiers were killed or wounded, and 13 of their ships were destroyed. However, the victory did not come without cost. Several Joseon soldiers, including Officer Na Dae-yong, were injured. Yi Sun-sin himself sustained a gunshot wound to his left shoulder, which pierced through to his back, though it was not a critical injury. Despite these challenges, Yi's leadership and tactical brilliance led to a significant victory, inflicting heavy damage on the enemy forces. This battle not only demonstrated his unwavering resolve, but also showcased his ability to achieve success even in the face of adversity. Admiral Yi Sun-sin's battle off the coast of Busan. September 1st, 1952. At the first crow of the rooster, we set sail. By around 8 a.m., we passed Malunde, but strong winds and high waves forced us to row with difficulty until we reached Hwajungumi. There, we encountered 5 large Japanese ships. Off the coast of Dadaepo, we found 8 enemy ships, 9 more at Seopyeongpo, and 2 near Jeolleongdo. All the ships were anchored close to the shoreline for safety. The naval commanders of the 3 provinces, along with our generals and Assistant Commander Jong Gyeol, joined forces to destroy all the Japanese ships. We ensured the enemy could not retrieve their supplies or weapons from the ships by burning everything. However, the Japanese soldiers, seeing the might of our forces, fled into the mountains, so we were unable to capture or kill them. After thoroughly searching the area around Jeolleongdo, we found no traces of the enemy. We then sent small boats to scout the Japanese ships stationed off the coast of Busan. The scouts reported that approximately 500 Japanese ships are lined up along the eastern foothills of the harbor, with 4 large ships from the vanguard stationed near Choryangmak. I convened with Won Jun and Yi Aoki and stated, "If we retreat now without attacking, the enemy will underestimate us." With that, I waved the battle flag, rallying the troops, and led the charge. Commander Jong-un, the Nakdo Manho, Lee Yeonryang, the Turtle Ship Assault Commander, Commander Yi Sun-sin of Bangdap, Kwon Jun, the Deputy Commander of Suncheon, and Shin Ho, the Magistrate of Negan, spearheaded the attack, destroying the 4 vanguard enemy ships. The Japanese soldiers, in panic, jumped into the water and tried to flee to land. Our ships seized the moment, raising flags and beating war drums as they charged forward. About 470 enemy ships were positioned under the eastern hills near Busan Fortress. However, seeing the overwhelming strength and determination of our forces, the Japanese soldiers were too afraid to come out and engage. Our fleet advanced to the enemy's position. The Japanese soldiers who were on the ships, inside the fortress, on the hills, or hiding in caves, climbed up the mountain, carrying guns and bows. From there, they rained bullets and arrows down on us. Our commanders, filled with anger, risked their lives and charged forward. We fired cannons, Jongunjan arrows, and iron bullets simultaneously, fighting fiercely throughout the day. As a result, the enemy's morale was significantly crushed, and the combined efforts of the commanders from the three provinces destroyed over 100 enemy ships. Many Japanese soldiers were killed by arrows or fled into caves, but due to the focus on destroying their ships, we were unable to take their heads. Our troops considered landing to eliminate the remaining enemy forces, but the Japanese had fortified positions inside and outside the fortress. Additionally, there were many mounted soldiers ready to counterattack. It was deemed too dangerous to disembark onto land. As night fell, staying near the enemy's main camp became too risky, with the possibility of being surrounded by enemy forces from both the front and rear. Therefore, the commanders and I decided to turn our ships around and retreat to Gadeok Island, where we spent the night. There were rumors that the Japanese ships anchored at Yangsan and Gimhae were gradually returning to their homeland. However, it was possible that the weakened enemy forces might regroup and return to Busan. Inside Busan Fortress, the Japanese had built over 100 houses after demolishing the original structures. Outside the fortress, at the foot of the mountains, there were about 300 more houses. Some of the larger houses were elaborately decorated, with stairs and walls resembling the interiors of temple halls. Seeing this sight filled me with deep anger and frustration. September 2nd. We attempted to attack the enemy camp again, intending to burn their stronghold and destroy all their ships. However, the enemy was scattered across multiple locations, and we feared that cutting off their retreat might provoke them into a desperate counterattack. It became clear that a combined assault by both naval and ground forces would be necessary to completely annihilate the enemy. Additionally, strong winds and rough seas had caused our ships to collide, resulting in damage to many vessels. We decided to repair the ships and stock up on provisions while waiting for the enemy to retreat further inland. Once the time was right, we planned to launch a coordinated attack with the Gyeongsang governor and other forces to eliminate the enemy entirely. With this strategy in mind, we reorganized our forces and returned to the main camp to prepare for the next offensive. Admiral Yi Sun-sin's leadership in the battle off the coast of Busan demonstrated his exceptional strategic insight and tactical brilliance. The battle resulted in the destruction of over 100 Japanese ships, significantly weakening their naval strength and disrupting their plans. By burning the enemy ships, Admiral Yi ensured the complete loss of their supplies and resources, while inflicting heavy casualties as many Japanese soldiers were killed or forced to retreat into caves, reducing their fighting capacity. Admiral Yi displayed overwhelming naval power, forcing the remaining 470 Japanese ships near Busan Fortress to retreat to fortified positions out of fear. In 1592, shortly after the outbreak of the Imjin War, the Joseon Navy faced its first major naval battle against the Japanese on May 7th, lunar calendar, in the waters off Okpo near Gyoja Island. Admiral Yi Sun-sin, leading the left Jeolla naval fleet, achieved a decisive victory over the Japanese forces despite lacking reinforcements from Yeoki, the right Jeolla naval commander. Admiral Yi's fleet, consisting of 24 Panoxion warships and 15 smaller ships, delivered the Joseon Navy's first significant triumph. On April 13, 1592, under the command of Konishi Yukinaga, the Japanese forces landed at Busan with a fleet of 700 ships and 18,700 soldiers. Many areas in Gyeongsang Province were quickly occupied, and the local naval forces suffered devastating losses. In response, Gyeongsang Right Naval Commander Won Jun requested support from Admiral Yi Sun-sin. After careful deliberation, Admiral Yi decided to mobilize the left Jeolla naval fleet. While waiting to join forces with Yeokji, Admiral Yi ultimately set out without the right Jeolla fleet, which failed to arrive in time. Leading 24 Panoxen warships, 15 small vessels, and 46 fishing boats used as auxiliary ships, Admiral Yi launched his fleet into battle with only the left Jeolla navy. On the morning of May 7th, Admiral Yi Sun-sin's forward commander, Kim Won, discovered Japanese ships and fired a signal rocket to alert Yi Sun-sin. Remaining calm, Yi led his fleet toward Okpo. By noon, the Joseon fleet spotted around 50 Japanese ships anchored in the harbor at Okpo. The Joseon Navy surrounded the Japanese fleet from both east and west, launching a fierce bombardment at the enemy ships trying to escape. Leading with 6 Panoxen warships, Admiral Yi's left Jeolla fleet sank 26 enemy ships, forcing the remaining Japanese forces to retreat or flee to land. This decisive battle marked the first victory for the Joseon military during the Imjin War. After the Battle of Okpo, Admiral Yi Sun-sin submitted a report to the royal court detailing the victory. In the report, he expressed both the joy of the first victory and the bravery of the Joseon soldiers. He highlighted the courage and self-sacrifice of the soldiers from the left Jeolla fleet, emphasizing that this victory was a significant step in protecting Joseon's seas. In his report, Admiral Yi wrote, "Although the enemy forces were numerous and their momentum strong, our soldiers fought with unwavering dedication to protect the nation. The soldiers of the left Jeolla naval base stood firm and repelled the enemy, allowing us to achieve a great victory. This victory is not just a triumph at sea, but a guide for how Joseon must fight in the battles ahead." The Battle of Okpo was not just the first victory for the Joseon Navy, but also a critical turning point in the entire Imjin War. This victory restored the confidence of the Joseon Navy and established a foundation for consistently pressuring the Japanese forces at sea. It also provided a significant morale boost to the Joseon army, motivating them to prepare for future counterattacks. Starting with the Battle of Okpo, Admiral Yi Sun-sin went on to achieve consecutive victories, including the Great Battle of Hansando and the Battle of Myeongyang, solidifying his legacy as a great defender of Joseon's seas. His leadership and decisiveness in the Battle of Okpo demonstrated that he was not just a skilled military strategist, but also a guardian of hope for the Joseon people. Admiral Yi's first victory at Okpo remains a shining moment in history, and his spirit continues to inspire people even today.